Welcome to another episode of me reviewing highlights. Just as a quick reminder, I include chapter markers for all the different highlights in this video. So you'll find chapter markers for each of the books that gets covered, and you'll also find links to find those books on Amazon. So with that, I'll get started with today's highlights. And the first one is from Drive. Yeah. Those artists who pursued their painting and sculpture more for the pleasure of the activity itself than for extrinsic rewards have produced art that has been socially recognized as superior, the study said. It is those who are least motivated to pursue extrinsic rewards who eventually receive them. So it's a nice, what they say, soundbite. It's a nice soundbite that those who are least motivated to pursue extrinsic rewards, they get them. And that's the kind of irony of life and irony of everything that we do. It's important to recognize that because this is something that people always felt, but it's been measured as well. For example, this has been the author is referring to a study over here where the artists who pursued their work, the painting and sculpture more for that pleasure, for their own sake rather than for some rewards, they were the ones who received the rewards. And it's important for us to recognize that that intention matters. So with that, moving on to the earned life. The pace of change you're experiencing today is the slowest pace of change you will ever experience for the rest of your life. Again, it's a nice soundbite sized line that just says that if you think that someday you'll be able to get a handle on the change, that okay, today it's very fast, but someday you will get a handle on the change because it'll slow down. No, that's not going to happen. The change is just going to accelerate. So what's required is we build a framework, we build a system where we can handle, where we can deal with that change. And one of the aspects of that system is to ignore things that don't make sense to us. There is this this effect of FOMO that whatever we see, whatever we come across, we have to be aware of that. We have to kind of like catch up with that. And this is like for everything that we see. And one of the parts of that system or framework would also be that you'll also have to learn how to let go of things. Um, it's kind of like the author covers those concepts over here, covers those thoughts over here, but it's elaborately discussed in another book, 4,000 Weeks. That's my perception. That's my takeaway from this. Moving on. Wrong fit, right fit. In other words, inspirational buffers are natural motivators. From Todd Thrash's great work on inspiration, we know that inspiration is not the lightning strike that we believe it is. It's actually a motivational process that moves from seeing a source of inspiration to being inspired, and then to taking action to transfer the inspiration to something new, different, better, or more meaningful. So, there is this. The book is about having a wrong fit or a right fit in an organization. And the author notes that uh, you'll not find something which is a perfect fit for you, as in like 100% checks on everything that you minutely want. So there are some buffers that kind of um, what's the word, that kind of reduce the impact of not finding that perfect fit. So there are two buffers the author mentions in this passage. The author is talking about inspirational buffers. So these are motivators. So for example, um, being in an organization where you always wanted to be, and now it turns out that it's not exactly what you thought it was, but it's mostly good, and you are finding a lot of inspiration. You're finding a lot of motivation to do meaningful things over there, and so that buffers the impact of not finding that perfect fit. The other buffer is relationship buffers, and like I mean, it's not covered over here. This is about inspirational buffers. So yeah, moving on. Kill it with fire. As a general rule, we get better at dealing with problems the more often we have to deal with them. The longer the gap between the maturity date of deteriorations, the more likely knowledge has been lost and critical functionality has been built without taking the inevitable into account. Okay. I think there are two thoughts over here. One is that we get better at dealing with problems. The more we deal with them, it's just practice. Um, there was this on a podcast yesterday. I heard that the fancier name for podcast for practice, exposure therapy. Anyway, so yeah, the author is talking about deteriorations, service deteriorations and so on. So the the longer you wait after that to process it, or for example, to document the learnings or to document the takeaways, it's more likely that knowledge has been lost, and some functionality has been built without. So newer functionality may be built without taking the shortcomings or even learnings from before into account. If things like documentation is missing and stuff like that. So moving on to the earned life. We are more likely to comply with a recommended course of action when failure to do so results in extreme pain or punishment, either physical, financial, or emotional. Okay, I can't recall the context, but this is in itself, it's pretty clear that we do things for the fear of punishment. For example, when we don't do something and it results in extreme pain or punishment, we are more likely to comply with something. And I think, I vaguely remember this. Like I said, I forgot the context over here, but I vaguely remember the author is kind of talking about um, amplifying the effects of the failure. So sometimes the way teams are structured, the way organizations are structured, it turns out that the effects of the failure does not reach the person who made the decision. You know, so the point is not to make it artificial, but the point is to make it apparent to the person who's making the decision, so that they are involved. They are noticing the effects of their decisions or their actions, and then they're motivated accordingly. We'll move on to again the earned life. I think this is the third one today. The damage from this trend towards vicarious living is one of heightened distraction. Instead of focusing on what we know we should be doing, we are, in T.S. Eliot's immortal phrasing, distracted from distraction by distraction. So I think this has come up before a couple of times, right? So the author is making a point that our distraction, it's a result of our need or our want of having or of living vicariously through others. Uh, Obviously, things like social media and like what we find in news of things that we wish we had done, or places where we wish we would have been, and stuff like that. So um, it's a distraction, right? Because you're not in the place you are doing what you should be doing. Instead, you're living vicariously through somebody else, and that's of course distracting, and it just results in more and more distraction if you just like keep on chasing that. So yeah, next we have hidden potential, and I think this also came up second time today. If they don't care about you, they haven't earned the right for you to care about the reactions. If they're not qualified to judge the task or close enough to know your potential, you can discount their views and prove them wrong. But if they've demonstrated that you matter to them and they know the domain in your skills, they're offering information to improve yourself. I'm a little lost. It seems. In fact, I'm just reading this book, but still I can't place this quote. It's I'm forgetting. Um, but I think the author is talking about feedback over here. Any input that you get, any knowledge, any feedback that you get, how are you going to receive it? And like I said, I mean, of course, the book covers improvement. That's the whole point of the book: hidden potential, improvement, different strategies, different tactics for that. But yeah, this I'm not able to place this at the moment. But I think this is about feedback. In how you receive feedback. So yeah, we have then the well-lived life. Imagine it from the turtle's perspective. He would grow. He sure didn't foresee a rescue. When things look dark and you're tempted to give up, remember the turtle and hang on a little longer. So this is towards the end of the book, where the author is kind of recounting a story. I think it's a true story. I'm forgetting. And this is about somebody who found a shark. I think they hunted some big fish. I'm forgetting, it was a shark, maybe. I'm forgetting these specifics. But from the stomach of this fish, they rescued a turtle. So, I mean, because of the acidic content, and of course, the shell was protecting the turtle, but still, it was in a very bad state. So the author is saying, imagine from turtle's perspective, he sure didn't foresee a rescue. It was in the stomach, and of course, there was no. How likely is it that you would be rescued? So when things look dark and you're tempted to give up, remember the turtle and hang on a little longer. So the author really, the what I take away from this is grit. It's like, um, things may look dark and you're tempted to give up, but yeah, just hang on a little longer. Moving on, hidden potential. Whereas burnout is the emotional exhaustion. Sorry. Whereas burnout is the emotional exhaustion that accumulates when you're overloaded, bore out is the emotional deadening you feel when you're understimulated. Although it takes deliberate practice to achieve great things, we shouldn't drill so hard that we drive the joy out of the activity and turn it into an obsessive slog. So I like that, the this new term that came up in this passage, bore out. Compared to burnout. So of course, when things are very hard and you're constantly under fire, it results in burnout. But the opposite is true, that when things are constantly easy and you're not deriving any meaning, any growth from what you're doing, then that results in bore out. So um, sometimes practice is just unnecessarily hard, and it can get monotonous, it can get tedious, and yeah, that's what the author says. We shouldn't drill so hard that we drive the joy out of the activity. And that's why the author starts talking about deliberate play. But maybe that's for another time. Again, hidden potential. I realized that success is not so much how close you come to perfection as how much you overcome along the way. Right. So there was this whole section of the book where the author is talking about that. Okay, what's the meaning of growth, or what's the meaning of success, and like through a couple of stories, the author focuses on this point that the growth is how much difference have you made and like the author recounts a couple of stories. I'm forgetting the names and all of that, so I won't attempt to bring it back over here. But yeah, the author is just talking about the difference that you have made in your own growth, in your own standing, and rather than how close you come to perfection. In fact, I think one of the stories the author mentions was about himself and experience with learning diving, and the improvement that he himself went through, rather than getting to 10 dives with rating 10. Yeah, it was more about a significant improvement. And yeah, so again, like I said, I won't go too deep into this. And that's also the end of our highlights today. And for some reason my camera is stuck. Was it always stuck? I don't know what happened. Anyway, I think something might have happened. So with that, I'll just say goodbye.